My friend, what if I told you you're gonna get so mad at this protagonist who has SSS rank skills? It's on another level, but the kid is so naive and dumb. I can see you're getting angry, but come with me for another fantasy of the season with the Uniwear Atelier Meister and stay till the end. I know you'll like it. So let's go to the video. A village in the mountains has suffered constant attacks from an S-class Fenrir. Because of this, the villagers spent all their savings to hire an SS-class group to defeat it. The members of Dragon Fangs are among the strongest adventurers in the world, each with their unique abilities. But then there's Kurt, who's only good for doing chores. To avoid getting hurt, he hides behind a wall. However, as soon as the Fenrir arrives, Kurt is the first to be attacked and thrown far away. The other group members prepare for combat. Gonova orders Bandanato immobilize the Fenrir, so she uses her wire to bind it. But a second later, the Fenrir slams her spine against a wall. Normally, Bandana would be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life, but since Marfus is on the team, she's healed in seconds and returns to the fight. She uses a tree as an anchor to steady herself, giving Gonova the Chansetto aim for the Fenrir's head. He leaps and strikes the creature with his magic sword. The villagers are so happy with the Fenrir's defeat that they prepare a feast for the group, even though they're almost broke. But Gonova hates the peasants' simple food, and orders Kurto prepare a decent meal for him. Bandana asks him to make something special, as this would be the last day they'd eat Kurt's food. Kurt doesn't understand what she means and asks Gonova, who explains that from that day on, he was being expelled from the group. Kurt asks if he did something wrong, and Gonova says the problem is he doesn't contribute enough. He handles the group's chores, but beyond that, he's completely useless in combat, since the group can only have 4 members. If they wanted to get stronger, they'd need to replace Kurt with a powerful mage or someone who can fight. Kurt begs to stay, but Gonova kicks him in the stomach, tired of his whining. They don't need him anymore, period. The next day, Kurt leaves the village alone, with no destination and a wallet emptier than the abyss. He ends up arriving in the city of Samaela, with just a few coins, urgently needing a job. He finds a temp agency and decides to try his luck. Upon entering, he's greeted by the receptionist, Kel, who asks if he's there to hire someone or look for work. Kurt says he's job hunting, and she informs him he'll need to take an interview and an aptitude test. She asks basic details like name, age, ID, hometown, etc. Kurt says his name is Kurt Hawkins, he's 15, and he's from Rast Village, in the Shin Mountains. Kel's never heard of that village but continues. When asked about his work history, Kurt says she was part of Dragon Fangs, but only did chores, and was recently kicked out. Kel is surprised he was in an S-class group, and says that could help in his job search. Now, he just needs to take the aptitude test. Aptitudes in this world are gifts granted by God, and with luck, Kurt might discover a hidden talent. They're ranked from G to SSS, and the difference between ranks is huge. Someone with a D-rank sword skill could barely cut a rock, while an A rank could slice a rock in half effortlessly. Kurt gets excited, but all his combat aptitudes are G rank. He loses hope, but Kel says he might still have a good skill in areas like alchemy or blacksmithing. However, the technician responsible for those tests is on vacation, so he'd have to come back the following week. Kurt says he can't wait. He's almost out of money. Kel, understanding his situation, asks him to lift a sandbag. Upon touching it, he feels a strange sensation, as if the bag is draining a bit of his mana. How can you lift it? Kel suggests Hetri construction work. She writes a recommendation letter for Margrave Tony, who's recruiting workers to repair the city walls. Kurt thanks her and heads there. The Margrave doubts Kurt can handle the work, but since they need help, he decides to give him a chance. He asks Kurto mix cement and plaster the wall, getting paid based on his performance. If he doesn't use at least half a barrel of cement by his return, his pay will be low. Kurt accepts the job and decides to use as much cement as possible. When the Margrave returns, he's shocked to see Kurt has already finished an entire section of the wall. Kurt apologizes for not doing more. The cement ran out. The Margrave can't believe he fixed over a third of the wall alone and asks how he reached the top. Kurt explains he threw the cement and smoothed it with a stick. The Margrave almost calls him a liar, but the work is done. Kurt says he only needs the job for a week. The Margrave, impressed, takes part of the payment and promises to send the rest through the agency. Kurt is surprised. He earned more in one day than with the hero group. In the following days, Kurt works hard, but suddenly the Margrave fires him. He explains the wall repairs were meant to employ poor people, but Kurt is too efficient. If he continued, there'd be no work left for others. He isn't angry but recognizes Kurt's skill is at least SS rank, if not triple S. He'd be better off working in the royal capital or something similar. He gives Kurt a lump sum as compensation for being fired so abruptly and leaves, but Kurt completely misunderstood the situation and thinks the Margrave just wanted to get rid of him for being a terrible worker. He returns to the temp agency, finds Kel, and tells her he was fired. It'll still take a few days before his professional aptitudes can be assessed. At that moment, they hear a commotion. At the reception, a girl is trying to post a job, but the receptionist says no one would accept such terrible conditions. What's she even offering? The girl insists, starting to cause a scene. Kel goes over to see the problem. Her colleague explains the girl wants to recruit a miner to dig an unexplored mountain but refuses to pay up front. She'll only pay if the excavation succeeds. Kelly agrees no sane person would accept this and tries to convince the girl to seek investors. But the girl says she can't. If she doesn't pay the taxes by the weekend, she'll lose the mine. That's when Kurt shows up and says he's crazy enough to accept. After all, in his village, he helped with mine digging and has experience. Kel asks if he's sure. With the proposed contract, he might get nothing. Before Kurt can answer, the girl interrupts. She wanted to hire a strong dwarf, not some frail boy. She'd feel bad sending Kurt to do it, but since any dwarf would demand at least in silver up front, money she doesn't have, she ends up accepting Kurt. As Kurt and the girl leave, Kel feels guilty letting him take that job. She thinks he'd be better off working at a brothel after all. She'd pay a lot to spend the night with a cute boy. My God, she's insane. While she daydreams, her colleague calls her. A bank deposit just arrived. The rest of the money the Margrave promised for Kurt's wall work. Kel expected something like 50 silver, but it's a shocking 200 gold coins. A fortune. She's so stunned she trips over the sandbags on the floor. Her colleague warns her to be careful. Those bags aren't normal. They measure a person's mana and grow heavier the more mana someone has. Usually they don't react to ordinary people, so Kel lifts them easily. But she remembers Kurt struggled with them days ago and starts wondering, who really is this boy? Is he even normal? Meanwhile, Kurt and the girl, Yulitsia, walk through the forest to her camp. Kurt gets worried seeing it's just one tent. Yulitsia says it's big enough for both, but Kurt says he could never sleep beside a pretty girl like her. Hearing Kurt call her pretty, Yulitsia gets annoyed thinking he's mocking her. But Kurt insists she genuinely thinks she's beautiful. Seeing his sincerity, she hands him a baked potato for dinner. Kurt gets emotional. It's been a while since someone cooked for him. He also thanks her for eating with him, since the hero group never let him eat in the same place. At night, Kurt can't sleep. Yulitsia is in her underwear. He decides to leave the tent and sleep outside. Yulitsia, who was only pretending to sleep, opens her eyes. She did it on purpose to test if Kurt would try anything, but now she knows he's a good man. The next morning, Yulitsia wakes up and finds Kurt sleeping near a tree. She feels bad but notices her coat has been repaired. When Kurt wakes up, she asks if it was him. He confirms, and she's impressed by his sewing skills, though she still doubts his mining expertise. Since it's too late to find someone else, they head to work. Kurt asks if Yulitsia has decided where to dig, but she planned to dig randomly and hope for ore. Kurt says that won't work and leads her to a specific part of the mountain. Within minutes, he finds a rock full of gemstones. Yulitsia is shocked, but Kurt has already located all the gems in the area. She can hardly believe it. If she sells them all, she can pay her debts. But Kurt says she can't sell them raw. He explains the gems will be worth far more if refined into magic crystals. First, Yulitsia doubts him. Only 10 mages in the kingdom can do this. While she's talking, Kurt already turns a gem into a magic crystal. Yulitsia is speechless. He did it instantly, while experienced mages take hours. After converting all the gems, Kurt lets Yulitsia sell them. He stays on the mountain to finish some things, Ulicia heads to the city's customs office to sell the crystals. Since they're extremely valuable, the agent asks where she got them. Knowing they wouldn't believe her, she shows a royal family emblem she still had, even though she no longer works for them. That's enough, and she uses a teleportation circle to reach the capital. There, she visits her friend Mimiko's shop. At first, Mimiko thinks the crystals aren't worth much, but then she realizes they hold 10 times more mana than normal, worth 10 gold coins each. Ulicia is shocked. Kurt gave her 50 of these. Mimiko hands her 500 gold coins. But Makistu requests Ulicia only sells these crystals in her shop, as uncontrolled circulation would be dangerous. She reveals the creator's name. Ulicia accepts the first condition, but refuses to give Kurt's name without permission. Mimiko, being a court mage, tries to order her, but Ulicia is no longer under royal authority. Seeing she won't get the info, Mimiko asks Ulicia to ensure Kurt doesn't leave for another kingdom. She also offers him the title of Count and access to the royal lab if he works for the royal family. Ulicia leaves the shop and returns to the mountain the next morning. To her surprise, Kurt built an entire house in the time she was gone. Just one day. And to him, it's normal. After all, in his village everyone does that. Nova is desperate. He can't make fire in his battle against a devil tree. He asks Malefisto heal him, but the girl is too weak. Nova then asks the group's rookie to cast fire magic, even though he previously refused help. A fight breaks out between them, and Bandana realizes this group is done. Meanwhile, Ulicia tells Kurt he received an offer to direct the Royal Magical Technology Lab. He doesn't understand how this is happening. Him, a noble? Ulicia says her court mage friend proposed it. Kurt thinks it's a scam targeting Ulicia. He considers the incredible offer but refuses. He doesn't see himself above others and feels bad for Dragonfang. Man, this kid is a little frustrating, huh? Too nice? Clueless about some things? Or is it just me being bitter? Maybe. Kurt says his commitment is to Ulicia, and she's overjoyed hearing that. Kurt, still clueless, thinks the crystals she made didn't earn much for Ulicia to pay taxes, but little does he know. She sold them for a fortune. Ulicia says she only took a commission and deposited the rest in Kurt's account. He says he doesn't need it, but Ulicia knows keeping all that money would weigh on her forever. After all, Kurt created the crystals. Now, she wants him to keep mining. Kurt mentions he found a perfect mineral vein. Ulicia thinks he should rest first, but the boy is fine. He slept 6 hours. Ulicia is baffled. How did he build a house and have time to sleep? Seeing her calculating, Kurt gets the wrong idea and thinks sleeping so much was a mistake. He remembers his old job. He only slept 4 hours, was the first to wake, last to sleep, exploited worker man. Report that, friend. The two head to work to start mining. Ulicia is skeptical. There's nothing notable in these woods. But Kurt says the mountain's topography suggests an ore deposit beneath them. He warns Ulicia not to dig deeper than 50 meters, which scares her. Kurt goes to another spot, digging where he found a large crystal. Time passes, and Ulicia finds a massive topaz ore. With this, Kurt could make a magic crystal, selling it for a fortune to meet her quota. But she reconsiders. She doesn't want to use Kurt for her own gain. She goes to him and finds a mining field he set up. In just hours, something absurd. Kurt shows her some worthless stones. Too many would crash their price. They're called mithril, but to Ulicia, this ore is worth more than platinum. In Kurt's village, it's common, but worldwide, it's a rarity. This boy was born under a lucky star. Everything goes right for him, but he doesn't even notice. Good to stay humble, huh? Ulicia asks which ore he wanted to find. He shows her the legendary orichalcum, the god's stone. Kurt casually says you can find it just by digging, 7 kilometers down. Ulicia isn't even surprised anymore. He did it in 8 hours. After 2 days of mining, the two return to Samaela. The tunnel Kurt dug now connects Samaela to Lord Dakin's city. Ulicia allows merchant guilds to use it in exchange for maintenance fees, covering her taxes. Kurt returns to the temp agency and runs into Bandana, who reveals she's no longer with Dragonfang. Earlier, leader Ganova ate at a cheap restaurant, but hated the poor people's food, and left without paying. Bandana says getting the reservation was hard, and Gonova wants her to bring Kurt back to cook for him. She tracked him down, but the guy's in trouble. He's about to be arrested for the mess they caused. Their healer already left, summoned by the church. Bandana tells Kurt her friend runs an atelier and needs help, offering him the job. She explains only 15 official ateliers exist in the entire country, and one needs an assistant. The perfect opportunity for Kurt ateliers. Produce magic items, devices, potions, etc. Their leader, the Atelier Master, holds royal permission for development and distribution, treated as a viscount. Kurt arrives at the atelier, but it looks run down. When he knocks, an elf maid answers. She learns he's there for the assistant job and takes him to the kitchen, uncleaned for 3 weeks. It's a biohazard in there. Now Kurt understands. They wanted a cleaner. Elves are terrible at this kind of work. The Atelier Master calls the elf for help, while Kurt starts the heavy lifting. As usual, he finishes lightning fast. 30 minutes to clean the entire mess. He thinks that's slow. Someone slapped this kid. Kurt goes to find the elf but gets lost, entering a room where a girl is changing. He looks closer and sees a curse mark on her. With permission, he touches her and analyzes it. Her condition is terrible, but at least her organs still function. Meanwhile, Ulysses and Mimiko realize the Mithriland orichalcum Kurt found are worth 50,000 gold. If others learn of Kurt's abilities, they might kidnap or eliminate him. Back at the atelier, Kurt meets the master, Lady Ophelia, a respected MILF. She watches as Kurt makes porridge for the cursed girl. Ophelia tells Kurt not to reveal he saw her. She pays him for the day. He thinks it's too much, but it's fair for someone who cleaned that biohazard in 30 minutes. As he leaves, Ophelia realizes her carelessness, letting a stranger near the girl. She goes to her room with the food. The girl, starving, tries Kurt's porridge, but suddenly collapses in pain. Ophelia thinks Kurt poisoned her and rushes for the antidote. Then, the surprise, the girl's curse is gone. Kurt's food worked a miracle. We see the curse's user apologizing to someone for the broken magic, but the man just says they'll resort to other means to eliminate Lisolette. Ophelia and Lisolette visit Mimiko's shop. Mimiko introduces Ulysses to the third princess of the kingdom, Lady Lisolette. Mimiko thought she was sick, but Ophelia reveals it was a curse. Someone trying to sever the ties between her father's kingdom and her mother's, the princess of the Guruma Empire. Mimiko hugs Lisolette, relieved, and vows to uncover who cast the curse. The princess says it was thanks to Kurt that the curse lifted, shocking Mimiko and Ulysses. Ulysses still can't believe that the curse the shadow cast for years was broken by a bowl of porridge. Now she knows Kurt is capable of crazy things, but she literally left him alone for half a day, and he ended up saving the princess. They'll reward Kurt at some point. But before that, Mimiko thinks it's important to track down the person responsible for the curse. Normally, anti-curse spells are in Lizzie's room, so someone must have tampered with them before she was cursed. Only 3 people in the kingdom had access to Lizzie's room at the time. Riscat's son, the general of the Royal Expeditionary Force, Tristan Menu, the bishop of the church in Isidora, and the kingdom's 3rd queen. But they can't go around making false accusations, so they need solid proof before acting. Ophelia suggests setting a trap to expose the culprit, and she already has the perfect idea in mind. Lizzie just turned 15, and royal customs say she must leave home and train for a year. The ones behind the assassination attempt will surely try to get her again, so Ophelia plans to create a fake Master Atelier and claim Lizzie was sent there to train. The assassins will probably try to get info on the Master Atelier to plan an attack, and when they do, they'll fall right into Ophelia's trap. But they need someone with real skill to play the fake Master Atelier, and Licha has the perfect person in mind. She shows Ophelia one of the magic crystals Kurt made, and as soon as Ophelia sees it, she has no doubts. It's the highest quality crystal she's ever seen. Speaking of Kurt, the next day he turns to Ophelia's house to work, but finds a note on the door saying she's not in. He then runs into Michelle, who explains that after Hell left yesterday, Ophelia suddenly took off with Lizzie and hasn't been back since. Unfortunately, that means no work for Kurt today, so he leaves, disappointed, and heads to the guild to eat. While there, He overhears a group at the next table panicking because their porter got sick, and without him, they won't be able to complete the mission. They don't have time to find a replacement, so it looks like they'll have to cancel everything. Kurt thinks and figures he can handle the porter job. He approaches and introduces himself, saying he heard their conversation. Though he's terrible at fighting, he could be useful as a porter. Sina laughs at the idea. A scrawny kid like him could never handle such heavy work. Candela apologizes for her sister's rude behavior but also doubts Kurt could manage the job stuff, especially since the group's after iron golems weighing over 200 kilo. Kurt, however, says he carries 200 kg easily. To prove it, he picks up Danzo and Kan at once, making it look effortless, even with Kan wearing over 50 kilo of armor. Kurt proved his strength, so the group agrees to hire him. On the way, they introduce themselves. Kan's the heavy warrior but prefers fighting with his fists. The sword's just for show. Danzo's a samurai, and Sina's a ranger. They have one more member, but he's sick, so they need Kurt. They thank him for joining, and Kurt thanks them for giving a nobody like him a chance. They don't get it. An incompetent guy couldn't lift 400 kg as a warm-up, but figure it's just his humor. Suddenly, Kurt screams, "He's been attacked!" Everyone turns to save him but is baffled seeing him fighting a slime. Kurt tries stabbing its core but his knife doesn't pierce it, and he ends up stabbing his own leg. Sina kills the slime for him, shocked at how awful he is at combat. He warned them his skill was almost zero. Or, well, actually zero, right? But she never imagined he'd be this bad. Kurt apologizes for being useless, but they say he doesn't need to worry. His job is carrying things, not fighting. Kurt's stunned. He failed miserably, yet no one's mad. This is so different from the dragon prison. He's happy he found such kind companions. They reach a dark cave. Torchlight reveals glowing moss, and Kurt spots poop on a rock. He asks if they should worry. Sina says it's goblin droppings, and based on how fresh it is, there's a nest nearby. Kurt panics. If he can't kill a slime, he'd never beat a goblin. But Kan tells him to relax. The group can handle a few. Though if it's a horde, they're screwed. As they advance, Kurt notices something odd in the wall. Suddenly, Sina spots a goblin and tries killing it fast. But it already called reinforcements. Now a huge horde's closing in from all sides. The reports didn't mention this many goblins, and they're trapped. Sina turns to Danzo, asking if he's got a plan. With these odds, the only option is to prepare for a brutal death. Then Kurt speaks up. "I found a secret passage in this wall." But even with the passage, they can't escape the goblins. They need a distraction. Danzo and Kan exchange a look with Sina, and she understands. She yanks Kurt into the secret room and shuts the door behind him. Kurt protests. Danzo and Kan are still outside, but that's what they wanted. Sina explains, "Goblins would track us if we all ran, so Danzo and Kan are buying us time to escape." Kurt doesn't want to abandon them, but Sina says they can't go back. She doesn't want to leave her companions behind either, but Kurt's combat skills are zero, and hers are mediocre at best. They just get in the way. Besides, she's sure Danzo and Kan will manage somehow, but that's a total lie because the two know they'll die there. Even so, they don't regret it. Dying to protect their friends is a warrior's greatest honor. Sina says they need to move forward and spreads glowing moss to find an exit. But then, to her horror, she realizes this isn't just any secret room. It's a boss chamber. And now they're trapped with an iron dragon. Meanwhile in the city, Lizzie wants to see Kurt again, so she begs Lisha to take her to his inn. After Lisha picks the lock, the two enter the room. But Kurt isn't there. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice speaks. "If you're looking for Kurt, he went on a mission to the northeast caves." Lisha has no idea who that was, so she rushes out to confront them. But when she gets there, they're already gone. She's confused, but Kurt really is in the caves and might be in trouble. From what she knows, there was goblin extermination training there recently, so survivors might have made a nest. Lisha tells Liz to wait because she'll go help Kurt, but Liz insists on coming. Taking a princess into a monster-filled cave isn't exactly safe, but she's trained in magic since childhood. Plus, Lisha is her guard. She can't just leave her alone. Lisha gives in, and the two set off. By the fresh glowing moss on the walls, they know someone passed through recently. Liz uses a sensory enhancement spell, but instead of hearing, she starts sniffing the ground. Yep, she's tracking Kurt's scent. After just 10 minutes with him, she loved his smell. And after a bit more sniffing, she finds him. She also hears fighting in the hallway and warns Leisha, giving her a status buff to help. Danzo and Kan are holding off the goblins bravely, but they won't last much longer. Luckily, before either is fatally wounded, Leisha appears and cuts down every goblin in a single strike. Inside the secret room, Sina falls to her knees, desperate. There's no way I can beat an iron golem dragon. Sorry, Kurt. We're gonna die here. But Kurt just smiles. Relax. I've handled a bunch of these. He walks up to the dragon, jumps onto its tail, and with a tap of his dagger, the entire tail shatters. He repeats the process with each limb, and Sina can't believe it. The guy who couldn't kill a slime is dismantling an iron dragon like it's nothing. She's genuinely terrified now. Kurt just thinks it's weird. Mining golems is normal for him. At that moment, Yulish bursts into the room and finds Kurt standing over a pile of dragon scraps. Kurt sighs in relief and begs, "Save my friends!" Danzo and Kan might still be in danger, but Leisha already handled it. They're hurt but will be fine. With everyone safe, they regroup in the room. Danzo and Kan thank Leisha. Without her, they'd be dead. But she says that's not the point. Now, she turns to Kurt. "I'm opening a new atelier. Wanna join?" Kurt hesitates. He's already part of their group, but Kan encourages him. "It's a great opportunity, man. Take it." Since everyone supports it, Kurt agrees. Leisha also offers Kan's team a job protecting the atelier. They accept immediately. Kan, excited, proposes, "Let's throw a party when we get back." Then he remembers. "Oh, and Kurt, don't forget your skill appraisal at the guild. I already set it up." A few hours later, Kurt arrives at the guild and meets Mimiko, a royal court mage. "I've heard about your impressive skills. I'll evaluate your non-combat abilities." After the test, Mimiko tells Leisha, "All his skills are rank B." But that's a lie. In truth, every skill of his, except combat, is triple S, and his mana pool is larger than anything she's ever seen. Even hers. She's relieved she was the one testing him. It'd be a national disaster if anyone knew how strong Kurt really is. In fact, they'd have to kill any witnesses, which is bad news for Kello because she overheard everything. Dude, how is Kurt so OP? He wrecked those iron dragons like they were level 1 slimes. Broken as heck, man. Drop a like and subscribe. If you want to be as OP as Kurt at something, and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for the support, and peace out.